Now what I'm going to do is go through some of these other buttons and dials that we have here. Now up the top here we have our tension here. So the tension discs are what presses on the top thread as it's coming through here, and it's just so important to get a quality stitch, and so you're not needing to have too much tension or too less, but we'll go into that later. The standard setting is on 4, and majority of the time that's what you're going to set your machine to. Now as we're coming up here, now if I take my foot control out, I can use the machine by pressing my start stop button here. If I push my bobbin spindle over, you can see that the machine is working just by me starting and stopping the machine here. Now when do I use that? The only time that I do like to use that, maybe if I'm filling bobbins, and what I normally do is I reduce my speed down here and then I'm pressing my start stop here. So just stop it and then push that over. And of course if you have trouble using the foot control, you can certainly use the start stop button, but as a sewer I suggest that you use your foot control. You do have a lot more control over your sewing and the speed that you're sewing when you're using your foot control. So I'm just going to leave it up on high there. Okay, so then the next one up here is our reverse button. This is a little tie off button here, a needle down, and our scissors. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how each of these buttons work. So we've seen the start button there by using the bobbin winder here, but I'm just going to remove the foot control again, and you can see how that you have to use your speed control when you're using your start stop button here to get control when you're using it, using just the button and not the foot control. So when you're using that, you can't have your both hands on your fabric, so you don't have as much control as you'd like. Now what I'm going to do is just press my scissors here because I'm at the end of my seam, and I'm going to cut my thread, so then when I lift my foot I don't have to reach for my clippers to cut my thread. So what it's doing, it's pushing the top thread down to the bottom, and then it's going to grab the thread and cut it off there, which is great. Now I'm just going to put the foot control back in because I prefer to use the foot control. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a reverse stitch. So when you're starting your seam, what you're going to do is start on the edge of the fabric. Now while we're talking about that, what you'll find with and when you're having a look at the foot of the machine as well, it's a little bit longer than the standard J foot or normal sewing foot that you get on the machine, and also the feed dogs are longer as well, and that's what you're getting when you're buying a quality machine like the Brother A150, is that with the longer feed dogs and the longer standard foot, that it's able to hold on to that fabric just that little bit longer for you. While we're here also, while I've got this foot off, I know that in the past there are a lot of people that tend to use a clear foot when they're doing their normal sewing. But the problem with that is the clear foot that comes with the machines have got a big groove underneath the foot here. And the thing is, when the foot is making contact with the fabric and the feed dogs, you're only getting contact on the outside of the foot here. This foot is designed to be used for just for your normal sewing, and it's got this big flat area here so that it's going to press that fabric down, and you're getting a quality stitch when it's feeding through. So I'm just going to pop that down. Now, I didn't explain to you that the feet are actually just clip on and clip off as well, so that there's a little button at the back of the foot there, and when you're putting it on, you're just going to align it underneath that there and lower your presser foot lever down to clip the foot on there. You do have a little black button at the back of the foot here, and when you're pressing that in, it clips that foot in nice and straight. So when you're coming up to a thick seam, what it does, it levels the foot out, and so that the foot's not going to struggle to go up and down on the rise of a thick seam. And that's what that's designed for there. While we're here too, that you'll see that the markings on the plate here, that when you're looking at when you're doing your dressmaking and you've got, say, you've got a 1 centimetre or a 1.5 centimetre seam, with the Brother machines, they are designed that from the left hand needle position to this first marking here is your 5/8 or your 1/2 centimetre seam, which is your standard seams, which most patterns include. Now let's start off and do just a standard seam. So I'm bringing my fabric over to 1.5, and I'm making sure that my needle's going to come down on the fabric there. So when I start stitching, I'm going to do a few stitches forward, and so this is why I was saying it's important to be able to have two hands to hold your fabric, because you're making it a lot easier, and you're getting you can maneuver your fabric just that little bit better. So we're doing the few stitches backwards, and then we're coming to the end of our seam, and you can hear how beautiful and quiet the machine is as well. And when I'm coming to the end, I sew right down to the end of the fabric, press my reverse for a few stitches, and then sew down to the end as well. Press my scissors on the machine, and then lift the foot, and there's my beautiful seam. If I open that up, that's what we should see. Okay, so I'm going to grab another piece of fabric now, and I'm going to show you this little tie-off stitch. Now the reason why we include a tie-off stitch on the machine is when you're sewing a fine fabric, and sometimes when it is a fairly fine fabric and you're doing a reverse stitch like what we've done here, what it's going to do, it's going to pull up that fabric in where you're starting and finishing. But what I do when I'm sewing a finer fabric is I use my tie-off stitch. So what it's going to do, it's going to sew a few little stitches backwards and forwards just about in the one spot for you, and then you're going to continue and sew the seam. And I'll just do a little seam this time, and then press my tie off again. So I'm going to press it, so it's going to finish its little dance there, and then I'm just going to cut the thread, and I'll show you what it's done. So what it's doing just a little finish on the fabric. Yes, you do get this thread actually in the beginning coming through to the back, and I'll show you how to stop that, but you can see that is holding that seam quite well there in the beginning and the end, so it's not going to come undone, and you don't have that thickness of the reverse there. Now with this thread, which tends to want to, like I had a fair bit of thread there. Now if I'll do this one again, and I'll see how if we can stop that from happening. So I've brought this thread to the side here, and I'm just holding it, and I'm just going to do my tie off stitch, come through, and let's do it at the end as well. Cut the thread, raise the foot. Okay, that's so much nicer. So you can see with this second one, yes, it has brought a little bit, and so that is my bobbin thread, which is just being brought up there, which is fine, but that's certainly given me a lot nicer finish than what happens here. And this will happen to you, it happens to all of us, but at least you know that this is the best way of doing it, is just making sure that you've got a little bit more of a thread sitting up the top here, and you're holding that top thread before you're starting off, and it's going to give you a little bit nicer finish on the back there. Now with this next one here, this is our needle down position. With the electronic machines, you can set them so that the needle stops down into the fabric. Now when you just get your machine out of the box, it will be preset for the needle to be in the down position. Now what I'm doing is going into the main settings of the machine, and this is where that I can change the default within the machine. So you can see here with this second one here, and see there's a lot of different pages here that you can go through, but I'm just going to this one here, and so this machine has been set with the needle to stay up out of the fabric. I prefer to keep it as at the default setting, and that's so that the needle stays into the fabric itself. And I'll show you why. So when you're sewing, and I'm just going to pretend that I'm just going to take my speed back up, coming down, and say you're needing to stop to turn the corner, or you're going to take out a pin. You can see now that without touching anything, my needle stays down into the fabric. So then I can lift the foot, I can turn, I can take out my pins, whatever I'm wanting to do, just by lifting the foot. And of course when I come to the end, and I'll come to the end of my seam, and I'll do my normal reverse, what the machine will do, it'll cut the thread and it will lift the needle up out of the fabric automatically. So I don't have to touch anything but my scissors here. So then I'm going to lift the foot, and you can see that it's just pulled that threads to the back and just left just that little tail, which you can just snip off.